Hey, this video is going to be from a show I do with Brad Ward and Abby Mueller on the OBR network called Things I Think I Know. This is just a little bit of a clip of a larger show. So if you want to check out the larger show, make sure you subscribe to the Browns OBR network.
I think that you have to surround him with an effective run game. And I know that Nick Chubb has not looked like Nick Chubb yet. And I think that eventually he will look better, but you can't count on that. So I'm drafting a running back, and in free agency and in the draft, I'm trying to get better on the offensive line, run blocking wise, as well. Like just have to supplement at the center position, at the guard position, and certainly I don't think you can count on DeJuan Jones at left tackle. So these are all issues of need. Um, if Jameis is going to be your guy. Really, if anybody's your guy, but especially if Jameis is your guy, you've got to mitigate the situations that you put him in, um, so that he's not throwing the ball over 50 times ever, really, right? Like, unless you're in just a completely negative game script. The other thing would be obviously the defense needs to be better, but my focus would be on making sure you put a run game around him, um, if you're going to bank on him.
Yeah, I agree with you on the run game stuff, right? I think the Browns just need to get more powerful on the line of scrimmage. I think that's their biggest problem right now is that they can't get push. They don't generate any push on the
No.
line of scrimmage anymore. And I think part of that has to do with this was a wide zone offensive line with guys who specialize in that wide zone skill set. And what these guys are giant. They're not physically imposing. They're not big guys, right? They're agile guards who can move, agile centers who can pull, get in space to the second level. Now they've gotten older. They're not as agile anymore, and they're not big. So you're running out of gun more and you're doing more man block schemes because they can't run as much, but now they're not powerful and you're running into a load of issues there. So I agree with you on the run game thing. Here's why I will caution people with Jameis. And I was one of the first people beating the drum saying, hey, Jameis is going to be better than Deshaun. We do this every year with Andrew Berry in these backups, right? When Jacoby Brissett was here, we saw him play, and everybody was like, how can you ever let him go? You can't let him go. He's special. And then you get to next year, and then all of a sudden Joe Flacco comes out of nowhere, and then we're doing the same conversation around Joe Flacco. How can you let him go? And then Jameis Winston now is the guy this year. I trust them to figure out that range of quarterback, right? When we're talking about who can manage the game, because the one thing I do worry about Jameis is his lack of game management skills are something that do not bug you when you're a 3-win team in December. It will drive you crazy if you are a 1-1 team or 3-3 team in September, especially if you're trying to play the low margin of error style of football that the Browns would have to play to win with Jameis. That's a tough bet. Now, again, he's not going to throw 60 times every day, and you should do everything that you can to avoid that. But also, like, I've watched 3 years of Jameis tape. I don't think his issue is that he makes bad decisions. It's just that he's not a consistently accurate passer of the football. Sometimes he fits balls into really tight windows. Sometimes he throws a football and you're wondering what he was trying to do with it. And I think that comes from he throws haymakers every pass. 17 intermediate passes in this game out of all those passes that he threw. That led the league this week by 5. Joe Burrow scored 39 points last week, 12 intermediate passes. Jameis
Can,
Winston, 17 intermediate passes.
can coaching, can they take him in the off season, and can coaching impact that? Because he went through a stretch in New Orleans where he was like 17-3 touchdown to interception or something like that.
I
Right?
think he'll
Like,
always have stretches, right? Like, I think also what happened in that stretch in New Orleans was that he was hot, right? Like, he was on a tear, he was accurate. The thing where I'm hesitant to say that coaching is going to fix that from Jameis is this isn't coaching on why he's making these interceptions.
So,
Like
okay,
the
so some of it is like here's where I'll just push back a little bit, and I agree with you. At times he's inaccurate, but like the two in the Broncos game, for example, the obviously the second one was wildly inaccurate, but
yeah.
it was also a risk reward. Just like he's throwing the ball from the opposite hash for a 5 yard, like he doesn't even need to make that pass. And he missed it inside by 15 yards, and that's why it got picked. Understood. But like he doesn't need to make that pass. Same thing with the throw to where he doesn't see Nick Benito, right? And he jumps up and takes it back for the pick six. Like, and he's trying to throw it to Akins. Like you're throwing it for a 1 yard gain there. Just throw the ball away. And I know that's not in his DNA to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but can you teach him some risk reward analysis, or like, Stefanski in his head, here's where we are on the field, time, score, don't force this. Like, can you do that to a certain level, especially if you have a whole offseason to work with them?
I think that Jameis has played quarterback at a very high level for 13 years. And I might have seen him throw the ball out of bounds purposely twice
Yeah.
in those 13 years. Like he just doesn't do it. Like I'm pretty sure that coaches along the way have drilled that into him. It's obvious when you watch Jameis, hey, if he just cuts out some of these moments, these decisions. But one of the things you have to acknowledge that makes Jameis stand out from a regular backup is that one of the biggest throws he made in this game was throwing it out to the field side when
Yeah.
it was not advised. Right. A lot of
Right.
his throws that break the game open are not throws that if you coach it out of him, you're going to get, right? So it's like, if you coach it out of him, are you going to get the same Jameis? Are you going to get the same good stuff that justifies him being out there? It's like, you can't have your cake and eat it too with Jameis, right? Like he's going to do some of this stuff. And if he were able to cut that out, Jameis is a former first round pick and he's super talented. He was seen as like one of those guys who was going to be consensus number one coming in.
Yeah.
If coaches really felt like that they could change that, or that effort would bear any fruit, that would have happened with Jameis by now, right? Like I think that's where I'm cautious. We're very cautious on Jameis. He's a specific quarterback for a specific time. Like if this were baseball, Jameis is that relief pitcher that you always think in the back of your head, man, could we start him? Could he be in the rotation? Right. He throws 110. Like you're always thinking, oh, this guy could be a starter, but then you play him for more than 3-4 innings. And then he throws himself out. And then all of a sudden he gives up 3 home runs in an inning. And you're like, oh no, we can't continue
Yeah.
to do this. That's the thing with Jameis, where it's
Like,
like, yeah, he does have that talent. There's no backup in the NFL that is as talented or more capable of picking up for a starter for a stretch of games than Jameis Winston. But if we're talking about hunkering down, making him your starter, I mean, Bruce Arians has tried to cut that out with him. Sean Payton has tried to cut that out with him. Kevin Stefanski can be the next guy who tries it with Jameis, but he's at the point in his career where you kind of gotta believe, like this is the dude who just said in his press conferences he's asking the Lord to deliver him from
yeah,
pick sixes.
Yeah.
I know.
Like he don't even think these pick sixes have much to do with him. Like it's just what's gonna go down. It's just a draw the luck. That's how he sees the game, and if that's how he sees the game, it's probably not going to bear fruit trying to change it. You're just going to frustrate yourself. And that's where you get into a dangerous area with Jameis, is when you start having expectations of changing. That's just where you start to set yourself up for disappointment, from what I've experienced, what I've observed from his whole career.
My point too, Quincy, was that like I think fans were like so happy after a loss because we scored more than 20 points, and like it was an offense that was running better than we saw for the first however many weeks of the season, that in comparison it just feels good to see something that's not like just pulling teeth to try to score a touchdown in a game. And that if the team were in a position where they were winning more games, it would be a lot harder to stomach some of the interceptions and the bad things that he does. Whereas right now we're just like kind of riding the high of any good moments that we can get out of it. I think my like biggest concern on just like who else they would be able to find, which is an unknown right now at like in, for a trade for a quarterback, like who they're going to be able to go out there and get. So I feel like I can't give a definitive answer on whether I would want him back next year, because I would just need to know like who else would actually end up being potentially available. But I do think the bad moments would feel a lot worse if this team was in contention in any way for a playoff spot.
All right, Q, what do you got, man?
I think it's clear that the Browns need to blow up the interior. It's time to have some tough conversations about some guys who've been here a long time that we have some love for. It's over with Wyatt Teller in this offense. Joe Bitonio, I'm at the point to where I'm kind of hoping he retires at this point. And Ethan Posick, we got to look for a replacement, right? Like, is it going to be Luke Whippler? If it's got to be somebody else. But that entire interior, right? I know we've talked a lot about tackle. Tackle ain't been killing us. The interior has been killing us. And what's concerning about that is these are the starters, right? Like 4 of the 5 starters. And look, Jack Conklin in December, we're not even expecting that at this point. This is a healthy offensive line for the most part outside the left tackle position. And your woes in the run game aren't because of your left tackle position. Honestly, the most concerning thing is that Wyatt Teller is one of the biggest problems in the run game some weeks, right? They switched. They want to get smaller. Well, they were smaller. They were a more athletic offensive line. They wanted to pull and do all these things, get these guys out on the edge, and that prioritized a different body type. But now those guys are older. They can't do that stuff all game. They don't have the stamina to do it. And when they do it, they're not as fast at doing it. So you have to adjust. So you run out the gun. You do more man block situations. And that makes sense given where the Browns offense is going, right? They want to evolve. They got rid of Alex Van Pelt for a reason, but you're small now, right? Trying to do that. And you clearly don't got the push. We have no ability to move butts on that offensive line. We're not moving grass. We're not doing anything on that offense. That 4th and 1 was pitiful. Right, like both the one we only got because the linebacker for the Broncos decided, let me pull Jameis towards me. So
Teller jumped off sides.
Yeah, and Teller jumped off sides, and he wasn't very effective even with the head start. So it's obvious to me that it's like, hey, it's time to hit the button. Like, I know we've been trying to slow play this, and we want to throw Zach Zinter in there, but it's time to hit. What's the guy from Extreme Makeover? Like Ty something? What's his name?
Oh gosh, I know it. Ty Jerome keeps coming to my head, but that's not it.
I don't know.
We need to get the homie over here with the spectacles and the sledgehammer, and we need to go ahead and destroy that old interior, man, because it just ain't what it is. It just isn't what it used to be. And my best guess for how you replace it, let's get some size in there, right? Tevin Jenkins. Let's get somebody who's big. Let's get Trey Smith, 6'5", 330. Evan Neal might be available, right? Former 7th overall pick, 6'6", 350. He could be a guard. He played guard at Alabama. Let's get Mekhi Becton. Imagine Mekhi Becton next to DeJuan Jones. We winning them quarterback sneaks. We need to jump off sides if we got 6'6" next to 6'6" and almost 800 pounds right there on the left side of the line. So that's where I think the Browns need to focus on. I don't think the run schemes are bad. These schemes work for other teams all the time. We just don't got the weight on the line or the strength on the line to be able to execute this. And then if you had that, I think Nick Chubb would look a lot better, because when he got out in space on that screen, he didn't look slow to me. He didn't look like he didn't have the burst to me. I think what's been struggling for him is the contact balance, but I think that's just him not lifting as much as he's used to lifting and not feeling like Nick Chubb. So give him an off season, he'll be much better at that. But none of these runs I'm looking at like, oh man, the old Nick Chubb would have cut that one up for 25, because there's nothing there. The only runs that they've had success have been with Jerome Ford. And I think that's for a specific reason, because Jerome Ford can get to the edge. That's how he runs, right? He runs away from that line of scrimmage. But anybody who likes to go in the middle field, like you've noticed, have you seen Deontay Foreman in like the last month?
No.
Why? Because Deontay Foreman goes up the middle and we can't get any push there. So there's no point in running him. That's just where the Browns are. And it's painfully obvious. And if that means I got to see Joel play a sad year in Buffalo or something like that. It is what it is. It's time to blow it up. Like, you gotta make some tough decisions. Gotta have some tough conversations. Wyatt Teller, see if somebody wants him, right? If somebody's willing to take Wyatt Teller off your hands, you do it. Because you need to clear this out, get younger, get bigger, get stronger. They started it by drafting a young man out of Michigan, Zach Zinter, who's a big boy, but more of that, right? Like, I want a center who's 6'5". Like, I want strength on that line of scrimmage sooner than later, because we're just on the interior. We're just getting our ass whipped every week, you know?
Yep. Makes them so one-dimensional. There's no room to run up the middle. And I agree. I mean, they have to fix it. And I don't know. The stylistic change you talked about, you have to adjust your personnel to the style, and it's just not there right now.
Yeah, it feels like they're very aware of it too, like you were mentioning with the way they have not been using Foreman at all. It's pretty clear they know what they need to do. There's just like nothing you can do about it right now until you have some time to hopefully use some of those, early draft picks that we have to make some moves. Take a few years, but I think they'll get there. But everyone will tell you it's Bill Callahan's fault. Actually, it's that he's not here anymore. That's why it's that's why it's failed.
Yeah, Bill Callahan ain't get these guys stronger, right? That's the problem, right? But this is a good year. Like, my silver lining of this situation, if you need guards, this is a great year to get guards. Yep. Free agent, draft. There's a lot of options, right? Like, thankfully Ryan Day has been so incompetent. I think Donovan Jackson might fall to the second round, right? Like, you can look at like guys in free agency: Mekhi Becton, Trey Smith, Pat McCarry, Tevin Jenkins, Will Hernandez, all available, all probably under that $8 to $7 million range. Can definitely start for you. Will Campbell out of LSU, not going to be a tackle, definitely a guard though. Definitely a guard. Right. So you got a lot of options there with the interior, even at center. Josh Myers, he's playing right now, Thursday Night Football. Parker Brailsford out of Alabama. Jonah Maheim out of USC. There's going to be guys in that interior, and a lot of the tackles in this year's class are going to be guards in the NFL eventually, right? So even somebody like Kelvin Banks, people project him to be a better guard than a tackle. So,
fortunately, find even a tackle in the first round.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's just not the year for tackle. I banged the drum last year for tackle. Nobody wanted. Everybody laughed at me. I was like, we should go get Roger Rosengarten, but he looked good on the right side of the Ravens line now, don't he? Second round pick. Everybody was like, he's not going to be a second round pick. Well, anyways, my beef with the internet aside, you probably gonna have to get creative with tackle. Maybe got to go after like a Dan Moore or a reclamation project or something like that to hold it down until DeJuan Jones gets back up healthy, or whatever you do there with the other tackle position. Maybe you take somebody like Tevin Jenkins, try to play him at tackle again. I don't know. You got to get a little creative there, but guard, there are solutions there. There is no reason to just put your hands up and not do nothing at guard if you're the Cleveland Browns. And the same goes for center. And if they run into this offseason and run into next season doing nothing on the offensive interior, and if they struggle, that's going to be on them entirely, because this problem has been visible in my eyes for like 2 years. I get not wanting to roll with it last year because you had a lot of belief in Jed Wills. He's a former 10th overall pick. But, I mean, I feel like that bridge is burnt, right? Jed don't seem like he's coming back anytime soon. I don't think the Browns expect him back. So, yeah, it's to me, that interior, got to blow it up, got to get some new guys in there. And I understand it's going to be tough to do that to somebody like Joel, but you got to make the move, man, because he's not making you better anymore.
No.